Let me turn it. Hang
on. Okay, I'm ready. That's okay. I can talk while he's getting together.
Okay, he's back. All right.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and count you in here for segment 1, starting in 4, 3, 2.
Hello, my divine, infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And today I'm very excited because we have the great Eon Parks back. I've been trying to get him back and back by popular request, because when we talked about the timeline split in November, oh boy, that was a huge populated, we had so many listeners, and it's a really timely topic. So we're going to talk, and today this is April Fool's Day, or April Fool's Day. We're going to kind of talk more in great detail about the whole the fool that has been, the joke that's been played on us throughout history, because we've been given a false history narrative, history, and we've bought it hook, line, and sinker, and many of us have gotten a lot of degrees in it. And I've just loved talking with Eon, because he has such a fresh, very profound approach toward the Tartarian history, technology, and architecture. And he really opened my eyes since the last time we spoke. But I do want to say also, since the frequency, as the Kystala spiral is taking on more and more quantum and more energy, and we had David Icon, and he was talking about how the simulation is fading. Our simulation has been hacked into. That's his whole, in the dream, that was his whole perspective. So I'm kind of trying to tie all these great minds together. And what I was explaining to him is that, yeah, the Fibonacci was the hack, was the AI hack, or, that infiltrated our divine organic template, or our Krystala spiral, and they were running interfaced on top of each other. And now, as they disconnect more and more, we're getting more of the prime creation, as he refers to it, is coming out. And we're being able to see things, and I know, since Ian spoke to me and I traveled to Malta, I was just so aware that these huge cathedrals that I had always thought were Catholic were these ancient resonating temples. So I've got Ian here, and April Fools, because we've been played a big April Fool joke on. So welcome back. So glad to have you.
Oh, I'm very pleased to be here once again. Yeah, April Fools is absolutely right. This subject of Tartaria is it's one of the biggest subjects that I've ever come across. I think this subject is bigger than like aliens, essentially. Once you figure out this, once you start researching the subject and you find out about it, it's literally bigger than aliens, the reality that there's aliens walking around, if people find out what this thing actually means. And it's right outside your front door. You can walk outside your front door, and within, depending on where you live, obviously, you can, within your local area, there will be evidence of what I'm talking about. You will be able to find it no matter where you are. It's literally everywhere. And you just need to be aware of what it is, and you will see these things in reality. Now, I only started studying like the whole Tartaria stuff about probably a little over a year ago. So all the knowledge that I've got, essentially, I've gained over the last year. Obviously, as you remember last time, I've been studying a lady called Ashiana Dean for about 20 years. She does like creation mechanics and all spiritual developments and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm sort of pairing this information with the stuff that I already know from her teachings, type of thing. So I've got like kind of a unique perspective of looking at this subject. Now,
and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it.
Yeah. So yes. So one of the things that I'm really interested in, the reason why I'm so passionate about this subject and telling people about it, is because it's waking people up to something that's very important, something that exists in the world. Literally, this is global. You can go anywhere in the world and you can find these buildings. There's evidence of them literally everywhere. And most importantly, these buildings, the common factor between them all is they all have free energy technology built into the structure. If you look at the roof, they all have some type of, it's slightly different depending on where you go in the world, but the basic concept is they will all have some kind of antenna at the very top, which will pull what they call etheric energy in from the air, and it will bring it down. It's usually a copper aerial.
Yeah, it could be like a weather vane or cross. A lot of times, the
well,
churches with the crosses or the double crosses, like you have showed many. Right?
If you know what a Kystala grid looks like,
Yes.
now I don't know. Obviously, you know what it likes because you know what it looks like because you've followed Ashiana Dean, but
Yes.
some other people might not know what it looks like. But
Mhm.
just Google sort of like Kystala grid. I'm talking to your listeners now, and then
It's kind of like the fallen Kabbalah, which is the
yeah.
version of it, but it's the 12, balls.
Yeah. So basically, if you Google what a Kystala grid looks like, you can draw. It's a manifestation template basically.
Yes.
It's what this creation is built upon.
Yes.
And you can draw the Christian cross on that template. Let me just where are we? I'll just draw. I should have researched it basically. Not researched it. I should have had a picture.
Now, is that the cross though that has also the double crosses across it? That because I saw that in Mosia and they tried to explain it away that the Pope said it's a special kind of Catholic cross, but it has two crosses in the center, not the traditional, just and
essentially like that. Where are we? I don't know whether you're obviously I'm on the radio, but I'm also doing visuals as well. You're recording it. So
yes.
It's kind of like that. It's a Kystala grid with a Christian cross built on it. So the proportions of the Christian cross, the reason why it's that shape is because it's designed to plug into the Kystala grid template.
Which is the template of the entire multiverse in which we live.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Divine blueprint.
So the reason why this shape, which has been told, where humanity has been told this is the Christian cross, and humanity has been told it's to do with Jesus being crucified. It's not. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's an etheric aerial, and it's that shape because it's designed to plug into the templates, which
I just want to make
in the air.
And a little aside, because a lot of people have been asking me about this because they're not familiar with Ashiana's work or the CD plates or the Emerald records. And yes, it does have to do with the Cathars, because the Cathars were carriers of this ancient knowledge from the Mahabharata or from the CD plates, this Emerald, and that's what they were preserving, and that's why they were massacred by the Luciferian Templar Knights. So yes, Cathars are very much connected.
Cathars with a K as well, not a C.
Yes.
That's what Yesha taught us, and there was one workshop where she was talking about all that. It was fascinating stuff, type of thing. So yeah, they needed an explanation as to why this shape was on the top of all these buildings all over the world. So they had to come up with this is, if you haven't heard this information before, it's a bit of a paradigm shift. They needed an explanation as to why this Christian cross shape was on the top of all these buildings. It was everywhere. So they come up with this story about it's the Catholic Church.
We're in a paradigm shift, so
right,
let's shift.
Now,
is the fan.
Now, I've been collecting loads and loads and loads of pictures of all these etheric collectors from all around the world, all the different shapes of them, all the different types of them. There's obviously your traditional one, everybody knows that on the churches, but there's also like sort of adaptations of them, like in India and things like that, and China. It's the same shape, but like some of them are a bit more ornate. They've got bits coming off them and things like that, and some of them are like fractalized. You know the way a snowflake will start expanding, and then once it gets so far, each little arm will start further expanding out. Like I call it a fractalization effect, where some of these antennas, they're built with that fractalization geometry in mind, built into the actual aerial. And the more you do the fractalization in the aerial, the better it's able to plug into the template. So the more etheric energy it's able to pull in. Now,
and some are weather vanes, right?
I think weather vanes were originally these aerials, and they've again, they needed an explanation. So they've turned them into weather vanes and said, oh yeah, that's a weather vane. But it's actually not. They're like etheric aerials in disguise, if you know what I mean. Once you see these etheric aerials and then compare that to a weather vane, they're exactly the same. If you take the north, south, east, west thing they've stuck on it away, it's exactly the same thing. So I think these are etheric aerials in disguise. Some of them obviously are in use. Some of them obviously aren't, depending on who owns that property.
So Ian, are you saying that basically the invading, cultures, let's say, for example, the Romans came in here to Italy, where I am, and there existed these ancient buildings that we now think of as cathedrals. And I just went to two in Palermo with the huge domes, and they were really resonating chambers that would bring electricity to the community and serve many other purposes. And then they just claimed them as theirs because they conquested.
Absolutely.
And then they redesigned it to look like Catholic with some of the Christian memorabilia around. I mean, how did that?
Well, that's why they call themselves Roman Catholics, the Roman Catholic Church. When you look at Roman history, I mean, admittedly, I've not researched much about Roman history. I know a little bit, but basically, they tell you that they built all these fantastic colosseums and all these Greek-style pillars and all these things. That's all Tartarian architecture. They just came in and they took it all over. Now, the Romans, they obviously started off in Rome. And then they expanded out, big military conquest to take over, like
the empire. They took care of everything that surrounded the whole Caribbean. I mean, the Mediterranean, and and so they just claimed all these ancient temples and buildings and
most of Europe. They were trying to go for the whole world, basically, but it was most of Europe. Now, I think that expansion of the Roman Empire was. It was to take over the Tartarian civilization. I think that's literally what was going on, and we're told this fake history because whenever we like open a history book and we look up the Romans, they always show Tartarian buildings and they attribute the Romans to building these things, and they didn't build these things at all. They just moved in, presumably massacred all the people.
Made slaves out of them.
Made slaves out of them, whatever they do, and took over these buildings. And then once they'd done that, they expanded out further to the next place, and then the next place, and then the next place.
Let me ask you, because I've been dying to ask you this question. I know when I was in Mossia, I went to this. I was so mesmerized by this building, the rotunda there. It was just this huge, magnificent round dome. And then it had like, archways around it. And I took a picture of it and you commented on it. And you said those were like acoustic resonating chambers, almost like woofer speakers. So how did this work? How did these buildings work? How did it work? Basically, that's what I want to know.
Okay. So, there's lots of different types of Tartarian buildings. Now, usually when you have a city, they call it a citadel or some type of area, there will be a central structure. And that central structure will almost definitely be built on a ley line or some kind of power earth center. Because the way the Tartarians did things is they built the main structure on a ley line because they were able to pull in the most amount of energy. And then obviously the ley line will be running in a long line. So they build the houses and the structures along the ley line. So there'll be like sort of smaller, like domestic dwellings and stuff like that on this ley line. So you'd have there'd be a central church, what we would call a church these days. Those
like here in Italy, there's always a major church in the center of the towns, and then the villages.
Yeah. Now churches were not. What's going? That flash! I can see you.
Yes, I know. We're having a terrible storm. We lost our lights the other day, and I'm like maybe losing my electricity. So, hang on. This show has been under such.
Okay, so churches, I believe, were not built as places of worship. They were built as Tartarian, kind of like centralized power stations. They were a place to pull in etheric energy. And then that energy was then distributed to the local area. So
everyone had free electricity.
Everyone had free energy. Everyone could plug into it. And then, you would have a small church. Every like little village and stuff in the UK.
Here in Italy too, in Europe.
There's also these things in the UK called cenotaphs. Now, what they are, I don't know. Have you ever been to the UK? They have every little village, every village in the UK.
And I'm coming back. I want to come to Chester and see that amazing cathedral. It looks so incredible.
Wonderful. Well, I'll have to meet up with you when you come here. Yeah. But anyway, they have these like little they call them cenotaphs, and they attribute them to they're monuments for the First World War and the Second World War, the people who've died in those wars. They stick their name.
Like obelisks usually.
Yeah, it's an obelisk. Yeah, they stick their names on these things.
In Europe,
they're everywhere. They're in every town in the UK, and
in the US too. They have them all over Washington. You know, there's
they're part of the Tartarian frequency running infrastructure, and they will all be built on ley lines. So they needed an explanation again to explain away what these things were, strangely sticking up out the ground everywhere. So they came up with a fake story that they're to do with. It's a memorial to the war dead in the First and Second World Wars. That's what they tell us they are, but they're not. They're not that at all. They were part of the frequency running infrastructure. So go and find one. There'll be probably one where you are, and then it'll be like an obelisk thing sticking up, and then it'll have a big square base on it, and usually that base will be aligned perfectly to the north, south, east, west. Go there with a compass, get your compass out, and you'll see that they've built it directly on like the north, south, east, west line, and it's plugged in to the.
Okay, and now what about these? And I saw tons of them in Malta. The goddess temples were made of these massive limestones, similar to like Stonehenge and the Albion Way. David, I kind of did a tour of all those stone groupings. He said they're on massive ley lines and they run energy, and the stone, these megalithic limestones, like hold the frequencies. And I believe they're also like portals, you know, that open up into the higher. God's worlds when we weren't, disconnected.
So I grew up in a place called Liverpool in the UK, which you probably the Beatles are from there. Now in Liverpool, there's a place called Lime Street. Now the reason why it's called Lime Street, and I only figured this out. Literally, I figured this out about 4 months ago when I took my wife to Lime Street, and we were having a little tour of all the Tartarian buildings. I've recorded all that, by the way. I'm going to put that on my YouTube channel.
Oh, good.
Now on Lime Street, there's a place called St. George's Hall, and this has been used in many TV movies, Hollywood movies, films, all kinds of things. The new Batman film, the most recent Batman film. It's in that. It's Gotham City Hall in that film, and it's in there's a UK TV series, Peaky Blinders. It's in that. It's in loads of different things, and apparently this building is he's not Prince Charles anymore. He's King Charles. It's King Charles's favorite building in the world. He's been on record saying that, right? So. Okay, so it's this big Tartarian structure. It's got like sort of above. It's got the Greek pillars all around it, and the front entrance has got like sort of it's like a squashed pyramid. Like it's not a pyramid like Giza, Egypt, like that. It's like a squashed pyramid above the entrance, if you can see what I mean.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, these are Tartarian portal stations. That's
Yes.
what these buildings are.
So
These, but if you go inside, right, this is absolutely insane. Go inside St. George's Hall, and you can only see this like once every 4 years. The floor, you can Google it. You can Google what the floor looks like. It's like this big mosaic floor inside, but they only open it up to see it like once every 4 years. It's covered over with wood, so you can't usually even go in there, to be honest. It's closed. But every 4 years they open it up. It's this like incredibly complex, really beautiful mosaic floor. And it's a Cathara grid. It's literally a Cathara grid with all the circles on it and the lines joining them all up. And at one end of this big hall, which is like a resonant, it's like a resonant chamber, there's a big, massive pipe organ, like what they have in the cathedrals. Now they tell you in these big organs, which are in cathedrals, they're all to do with Christianity and playing the hymns and all that kind of stuff, and you worship Jesus in these cathedrals. So what's a pipe organ doing in St. George's Hall in this room? Do you know what I mean? The reason why is because they were using sound technology, and they were using a specific mathematical arrangement of notes, like the frequencies of each note, and those resonances that they were creating between the notes in that chamber. It literally opened up portals, and people could travel to different places through these portals by standing on specific places on this template on the floor. That's what these that's what these mosaic floors were for. They were literally kind of like, if you like, teleportation pads. You would stand on a specific circle, then they would play a specific type of sound frequency, combination of musical frequency notes, in combination with the etheric energy that they were pulling in from above, in the air above, and it would all mix together and create these specific resonances. And along with the geometry on the floor, because remember, all these mosaics on the floor, it's all to do with, it's all in these geometrically specific dimensions. All of those three things together would literally, they could open up a portal and they would travel. Now, I think, well, the people who've taken all this technology over, you can call them whatever you want, the elite, the cabal, the fallen angelics. I just call them collectively the parasites, because that's what they are. They've taken over all this infrastructure. They've taken over all our history and all our knowledge, and they're just using humanity at the moment as a source of energy. They're vampirically feeding on our energy. So they're parasites in any definition of what they are. Parasites fits what they are perfectly. So I just call them parasites.
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop you. We're gonna take just a really short break right now, but when we come back, I want to ask you about that, and I guess I want to ask you also. So the parasites can't really navigate to the higher frequency realm, so they would be contained. So hold that thought for just a few minutes, and we'll get back and hear more about this and your mathematical equations that you've come up with. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, all right.
All right, perfect. We're clear. I'm just going to quickly save that.
Okay, great. So when I record the second part and I send it as an MP3, I should probably do like a break, right? Because I have one break. I'll do the same thing, like just say, okay, I'll be right back, and then pause for a few minutes, and then so you can upload it that way and put the commercial in. Matt, are you there? No.
I'm sorry, you were asking me a question.
Yeah, I was asking you, when I do the second segment that I'm going to record, should I?
When you record, just go to a break and then just wait like 10 seconds and then go right back into it.
Okay, for the edit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully we'll have our electricity. We'll have the electricity out.
All right. So we're saved. We're good to go into segment 2 if you're ready.
Okay, and welcome back to the
Oh, sorry. Let me count you in. Sorry. All right, here we go. In 4, 3, 2.
And welcome back to the Infinite Human Talk Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Monroy, and we're talking to Ian Parks, having a fascinating conversation about Tartarian architecture and technology. And we were just about, I had asked him about, how the parasites, as he calls them, the fallen angelics, the cabal, the people who are, commanding, have been trying to control this simulation and reap the loosh from it, whatever. There's so many different terms, but I think everyone knows what we're talking about. But how they have taken over this really Tartarian technology is Krystic, and I think it's from Tara. That's why I think it's called Tartarian. And so he was talking about St. George, where they can actually stand on and we explained the Cathara grid, which is really important, and it's the basic blueprint for the entire multiverse in which we live, and how they could use the tones in the resonance and the tones that emanated from the organ frequencies there to actually travel through portals to different areas. And my question to Ian was, but they can't really travel beyond a certain dimension because of their own low frequency and disconnection from what I call infinite source, right? Right? Wrong?
Yes, obviously you've got people who are incarnated on this planet. There's a multitude of different soul groups of people. Now, obviously, we've got what Iesha calls Iesha is Ashiana Dean, by the way. Mm-hmm. So I study
Speaker one. Speaker one.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's explained in her book Voyages 2, The Secrets of Amenti. She goes into all the different races and all the history that's happened on this planet. Fantastic read. 100%. If you ever read one book in your life, that's the book you need to read.
And it's available on
Arrayas.com. So it's hang on, A-R-H-A-Y-A-S. It's a weird spelling. It's a weird spelling. Arrayas.com. ARHAYAS.com. Okay. And it's there. Voyages 2, The Secrets of Amenti. So she goes into all the different races that have interacted with our planet and the history and all that kind of stuff. So you've got like Draconian. I think they can go up to like basically. Iesha talks about the DNA template, the 12-strand angelic human template, and then you've got indigos that have come in. They've got more than 12 strands. And then you've got some what Iesha calls invader races, which are like your Draconians, your Anunnaki, and they've all got Leviathans. Now, when you're a fallen angelic, it means your template, the manifestation template that you are built upon, is disconnected from the 12 point of the Cathara grid. You can't connect back to that 12 point. Now, the Anunnaki, they can only go as far as 11.5. So they can't get any higher because they've got a fallen template. And the Draconian, I don't think they can get up to 11.5. I think
they're usually 10, aren't they? About a 10.
I think it's 10. And this is why when you Google the Tree of Life or things like the Kabbalah, and you get these, there's different variations of the Cathara grid. The original Krystic Cathara grid, Krystic with a K, K-R-Y-S-T, the original Christ code Cathara grid has got 12 signet points on it.
And the Kabbalah really is, they call it the Tree of Life, but it's really the Tree of Death, and it only has 10, right? It has
so anything anything that's got less than 12 signet points is a fallen template. And you will find ones on the internet with 10 and 11 points. And basically, these are different agendas, basically, from different fallen soul groups type of thing. And
But I think I just want to make the point that, like, for example, even Thoth, went up to, from what I've heard, 11.5, because they have all the powers, but they don't want to surrender. Really, it's surrendering to the will, the highest will, divine infinite source, the oneness of all things. And that's what, anything that falls short of that there's a huge difference, because it's service more to self and not respecting the free will of others. Whereas when you are fully 12-stranded Krystic with a K being, you are, connected to divine source. You serve infinite God source and service to others.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something very interesting about Mr. Thoth. Right. He used to be part of something called the Emerald Covenant. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Which is explained in Voyages 2, the book that I mentioned before. This is it's an agreement by the Krystic councils, and it's meant for all these fallen groups to join the Emerald Covenant, and the Krystic groups will help them all get back on the Krystic Ascension Path. And it's meant for everyone to live in harmony and everyone to work together in this co-creative effort for everyone to re-evolve back into the Krystic Ascension timelines. Right now, you have certain fallen angelic groups that join the Emerald Covenant because they're promised that the Krystic councils will help them, and then they end up defecting.
For bioregenesis,
Yeah, exactly, bioregenesis. That's what it was all about. And then, if you read the history, Thoth was part of one of the Krystic councils, and he was entrusted with something called CDT Plate 11, which is Cloisterdora Torah Plate 11. Now, there was 12 angelic human tribes of humans seeded on the planet. I could go off on loads of different tangents here, but I'm trying to stay on track. And each one was given one of these CDT plates, which basically they're like holographic discs that hold information, history records, ascension teachings, all kinds of things like that. He was entrusted with one of them, CDT Plate 11. Now, Thoth stole CDT Plate 11, defected from the Emerald Covenant. He used the information contained within to assist the Anunnaki. Now, at the time, the Anunnaki could only reach DNA accretion level 11, but he used that information to allow them to go to 11.5. The reason why the Anunnaki can go to D11.5 now is literally because Thoth defected from the Emerald Covenant with CDT Plate 11. He renamed it the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and tried to pass it off as his own information, which it wasn't. Yeah. And we are now we're still dealing with the ramifications of that even today.
Oh, so Thoth, I call him the great pretender, and I go into that in great detail in my book, The Infinite Human, if you're getting lost, to kind of put it into real basic terms, because Ashiana goes into it in great detail. But I think one of the most devastating, because I know that entity well, many lifetimes. And one of the most devastating he did was the wound, the deep, what I call the twin soul wound, and what he did in Kauai when he betrayed, when he changed sides. And I don't know if you ever heard Ashiana talk about that, and also Michael Dean, because they talk a great deal about what they did was, they killed all the twin souls. We were always bound together by our last 6 strands, and they tricked the women into going to Nibiru to breed, because these Thothian Anunnaki Leviathan hybrids need the Krystic female templates to prolong their race. And we talked about this in the last the last talk show with Oliviana, very young starseed and very well schooled in Ashiana. Yeah. And we were talking about how we were talking a lot about women and their sexuality, and then the whole war of the sexes that's going on, you know. And the men felt totally betrayed because their wives were up in Nibiru, you know, getting raped by the men, the Tothian, his whole legions there. And then the women were like being forced to bear like Rosemary's Baby, you know, this demonic spawn that was being bred to wipe out the Krystic races. So it was in the psychic of the female, I think, is probably the most damaging thing, and brilliantly, diabolically masterminded by Thoth, who had that ability to just know the weaknesses of the Krystic beings and play on their maternal instincts, on their loyalty, on their love, on their good-hearted nature, and so was such a master manipulator of us. He did a real job on the Krystic races, I think.
Well, they were trying to create a hybridized race line, which is why they kidnapped the women. Now, the reason why they were trying to create a hybridized race line is because as I explained before, there was originally 12 angelic human tribes, as you call them, seeded on the earth. Each one of these tribes, for instance, I live in the UK, which is Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England. Now, that area is referred to as Tribe 11 because we are like Tribe 11 is like red hair, freckles, like sort of palish skin. So my biology belongs to Tribe 11,
and you carry the genetic codes for the Stargate 11.
Well,
right?
absolutely. That's what I was just gonna say. We're each tribe, it's literally genetically programmed into your DNA to run the codes of the Stargate. So in the UK, we have Stargate 11. So
France, they have 12, and
these fallen angelic groups that have invaded into this planet, they can't just come and steal these codes to run the gates, because their objective, right? Their objective is all 12 planetary stargates collectively is referred to as the Planetary Templar. And the Planetary Templar,
which is a Cathara grid again.
It's a big Cathara grid. Yeah. Exactly. You've got it. Fantastic. So these invader races, they want to take over the Planetary Templar. And they need to do that by taking over each individual planetary stargate. So they need to hybridize with each angelic human race, in most cases, forcefully. Now, once they've created this hybridized race, as an example, Tribe 11 stroke Anunnaki, you would get a hybrid race line of the mix of those two. Then Anunnaki souls come in from like D2, can it literally incarnate into that new race line? They can't incarnate, you see, into a pure Tribe 11 template, angelic human template. They need to create the new hybridized race line to incarnate into. And once they incarnate into it, they've got the codes in their DNA to be able to run the gates. And then,
and so ultimately, the goal is when the gates are portals to other positions in our galaxy, in our universe, in the Cathara grid, and then because ultimately they're trying to maneuver the entire time matrix into their fallen parallel universe. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to get through to the other to take it over.
They're controlling all the frequencies. So some places which are built on planetary stargates are the Vatican. That's built on a planetary stargate.
Five, right?
And Giza, the big pyramid in Giza.
Yes.
That was D4 stargate. Well, it used to be, but the planet got.
And we have stargates that are the major stargates, and we have like the inner Earth stargates and the parallel. So there's a lot.
Oh yeah. There's loads of. I've got loads of maps and lists of where all these things are.
So it's really the structure. So if you manipulate those, it's like a dominoes effects. It's like a web or something. You know, you can actually pull the whole whatever Jacob's ladder or whatever you want to call it. You can pull the whole thing out by
Yeah.
changing, by distorting it, which is what they've been doing for eons and eons.
Oh,
correct?
yeah. Oh, so just going back to what you were saying before about
Yeah.
Lime Street, the reason why it was called Lime Street,
Yeah.
or the reason why it is called Lime Street, is because the entire street is full of these massive Tartarian buildings, like St. George's Hall,
Okay.
and the big art gallery and Liverpool Museum. There's a big library as well. All these massive Tartarian buildings, and they're all made of white limestone. Now, apparently, this white limestone is they tell you that they don't know the material that these, obviously it's limestone, but apparently it's mixed with some kind of crystal. They like sort of break up crystal, and then
Yes,
the
yes.
mix that they
I've heard
use
that.
to make these blocks, it's a mix of some kind of polymer
Yes.
and crystal, and
So
then they build.
it has a high resonancy. It's a very,
Yeah.
very, yes.
And it runs the etheric frequencies. So these buildings, they become, it's just this massive energetic building that's holding all this etheric energy inside it. And I know that you want to know more about the architecture. Now, when you go inside these buildings, like the exterior of these buildings and the interior as well, once you know what you're looking for, it's all built on very specific angles of geometry. All the roofs, all the angles of the roofs and stuff are all built on very specific angles. All the mosaic floors inside, all the way the roofs are designed, even down to like the most minutest detail, is all designed to plug into the templates.
So yeah, okay. So we're bringing it to us because we're running out of time here. I hate to move you.
All right, go on.
But so the parasites are using that. How are they using that? Obviously, King Charles it's his favorite place. What's he doing there? What dark devious?
Well,
agenda?
some of these that they've kept the best for themselves, basically. And I believe that they're still actively using some of this technology for themselves. They're using some of this portal technology for themselves. They're pulling the frequency in. They're using that frequency for its original intention, which is, I mean, they weren't just using it to open portals. It was, the whole civilization was built upon healing your template. You go into these places, it's like a very like magnified healing effect. If you go in there and your template is slightly messed up or slightly distorted, these places will like kind of reset you back to normal, and then you can get some healing, and then you leave and go about your day. That's what these places are for.
Share with you real briefly, because I think also one of the things they're doing is they've been polluting them, because, and when I was in Malta, just real briefly, when I would go to like Rotunda and stuff, I would go there every day just to get a healing. I get it attuned, a tune up. And when I went to these limestone ancient goddess temples where they were giants, they have myths about giants building them because they were massive stones, and what was so interesting, I wanted to tell you, they had Kystala spirals etched into them and into the limestones, and they had the red ochre carved into the acoustic chambers that were subterranean. And I wanted to so much. I wanted to bring you and what's your wife's name? Machiko. I wanted to bring you guys over because I rented this huge limestone house and I had wanted to bring tours, but it was like flying into a hornet's nest. I was so attacked. I've never been so attacked by the black magic and the AI. It's become a smart city. It's just totally, they've ruined it. And they've covered up so much of this ancient stuff because most of it's subterranean. It's so fascinating. But when they came in, what they did was they took it away from the goddesses, who were running the Krystala frequencies and everything and keeping it, in harmony, with the Krystala spiral. And then they started they filled it through with bodies. And they call them, they say it's a burial chamber. No, I think they did that to downgrade the frequency and to ruin it and to dirty the ley lines. Don't you believe that's part of the agenda with?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen pictures of that. Like the catacombs in France go down underneath, and there's like I don't know how many's down there, like hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of all these skulls. Like they've made like walls out of them, like all these skulls, and you're like, what? What's that all about?
It's a
Like,
death cult.
you just
It's
wouldn't do that.
No.
What's going on there?
And they call it a burial chamber, but they were bodies upon bodies just like thrown down there. So it wasn't a burial chamber. It was a massacre of loose, people were killed and suffered, and it contaminated the ley lines,
Now, just very quickly, Paris is centered around Notre Dame Cathedral. That's the very center of Paris is Notre Dame Cathedral. Now, that Notre Dame Cathedral is built on a very old pagan site, and it used to worship Isis. It was built as a temple to give. Well, it's not worshiping, because worshiping is like giving your energy away and bowing down and all that. It's not worshiping; it's celebrating Isis, Queen Isis. Like the god of creation type of thing, the queen of creation type of thing. And Paris used to be called, before the parasites took it over, it used to be called Par-Isis, which is where the word Paris actually comes from. Par-Isis is French, which means for Isis. Now, Paris obviously was this enormous Tartarian population center with all these amazing buildings. If you want to know what Tartarian architecture looks like, that's what it was. That was the very definition of Tartarian architecture, what Paris used to look like. Try and find pictures on the internet of the Paris exposition. I think they call it. I think it was like 1902. The World Fairs. I think the Paris one, off the top of my head, it was around 1902, somewhere like that. And basically, these World Fairs happened all over the world. They presented all these big buildings. Apparently, they built them all in 2 years. This is the fake history that we're told. And then immediately after the World Fairs, they knocked them all down.
So do you think it was just an excuse to destroy the buildings that were there?
You got it. It's a fake history to explain what all these buildings were and then why they're no longer there. That's what the parasites have done. It's a crying shame what they've done on this planet. They've kept the best ones for themselves. They've chosen select buildings to use for themselves. So these buildings, they're used in their infrastructure. So they're now government buildings, schools, universities. Think of Harry Potter and all the big Tartarian castle schools, what they're in. Strangely, mental asylums are all using Tartarian buildings.
They can use it's all energy projection, so you can use it for positive or you can invert it and use it to downgrade and to pervert and to invert everything.
Most importantly, these buildings are pulling in the etheric energy, so inside that building is highly charged etheric energy. So the beings that are inside them, which is currently all your Freemasons and all the fallen angelic infrastructure, the intention of those people, of what they're trying to do, all their actions and things like that, their intentions are greatly magnified by the etheric energies.
Which is that's why they turn them into Catholic churches and they conduct their satanic blood rituals, which contaminate those, because they're built on the ley lines, so the dragon nodes.
All your banks on your high street. The high street, as they call it, will be a ley line. If you go to your local high street, the reason why it's a high street is 99% it will be built on a ley line. And you'll always get the banks on the high street because they're tapping into that energy. And then if you go to like the central bank, which is like in London, you have this little square mile called the City of London. That's where they have all the central banks, the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan.
Yes, where the Queen reigns supreme. The king.
That's all on ley lines. Now,
and they're using it.
The activities of those people and their intentions of the things that they want to achieve,
grounded.
they're magnified and manifested and fortified by all this etheric energy that's coming in. They're using that in order to be able to control everybody else, and they're keeping all that energy for themselves. So,
thank you, Eon, so much. Believe it or not, the hour's flown, but stay tuned because next week we're going to go into much more detail about the misuse of the ley lines and how we can start bringing them back and how we can start, using this energy. Take hold of it, which is our rightful birthplace to have this energy. So thank you so much, Eon. And
a pleasure as always.
Thank you for joining me, Infinite Human Family. And please tune in next week when we go into a little bit more detail about this fascinating topic. And have a wonderful, beautiful, infinite week.
Ciao. Okay, bye-bye. Bye for now.
Great job. All clear. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Oh,
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye, Matt. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to continue. All right. Do you need to take a break? Are you okay?
No, I'm all right. I'm all right.
Okay. So I'm just going to start it like it's, the next show.
Okay.
And we'll just follow up. And I like this idea. I'd like to talk a little bit more about, the ley lines and the Tartarian, architecture stuff. So let's just kind of take it up. Okay. So hang on just a minute. Yeah. Hello, you divine, infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And it's welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here and back. And we're talking again with the great Eon Parks. We had a wonderful discussion last week on April 1st, April Fool's Day, about the fact that, really we've been fooled throughout history with this fake history, thinking that all this beautiful, incredible architecture that's right in front of our eyes is in art and culture and, all these amazing things that we think the Catholic Church built or, the Renaissance artists created or the ancient Romans, the ancient Egyptians, but it's actually Tartarian architecture that's very, very ancient. And it was built by Krystic beings. And last time we talked a lot about, the true history, the Krystic history that is written down in the Sitadora plates and the CD plates or the emerald records, not to be confused with the emerald tablets. And we started talking about how basically the fallen angelics or the parasites had moved in, these raider and vader races of Anunnaki, Leviathan hybrids, would move into whatever they were conquering. I mean, it went from the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Alexander the Great, who burnt the library where all these records were held and now are under the Catholic Church and 53 miles of hermetically sealed libraries. That's another story. And then the Romans, who did probably one of the most devastating, invasions and basically went into these Tartarian Krystic communities and murdered everyone or made them slaves or and took the women to procreate their to get this codes for the stargates from the Krystic tribes. On and on and on. So this is the history. And basically they renamed it and they repurposed it to serve their dark agenda. So welcome back, Eon. And let's go into a little bit more detail again with this.
Nice to be back again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very pleased to be here.
Yeah, it was a long week. Boy, shit.
I know. Crazy. So, what would you like to talk about this time? Ask me a question to start me off, because basically how I do these things is
yes,
I don't usually prepare anything. Just ask me a question, and I'll just start talking. Basically,
don't worry. I have so many questions.
Okay.
Well, you kind of showed me last time very briefly because we didn't have a chance to talk, but we were talking about the frequencies that they run through these, and then you were talking about the tones, and we touched on St. George's and how each tone corresponded with the Cathar grid and the ley lines and that whole complex. And you showed me a paper that you had kind of worked out with tones.
Oh yes. Now basically I'm creating a course at the moment all about this. For about the last 15 years, I've been studying the Krystic musical tones. Now, if you take a normal piano at the moment, it's tuned to something called 440 temperament tuning. So this is the established global standard for musical tuning all around the world. So turn on the radio, listen to any pop song, any music, and it will 99% of the time it will be tuned to 440 hertz temperament tuning, equal temperament tuning it's called. Now, if you were to take a graph and you were to plot those frequencies on a graph, it would be like a slight curve going up, right? Now, that curve is actually what's referred to as the Krystala Spiral, which is Kryst, and it's a very specific mathematical spiral. Now, in order for that musical octave to sound correct, it has to be tuned to the Krystala Spiral. It has to be. If you try and deviate, I mean, you can make like sort of slight deviations and it will still sound okay. But like you need to have it tuned to more or less the Krystala Spiral. Otherwise, certain notes will start to sound out of tune.
But hold on just a minute, because I'm a little confused now. Because the 440 is really very distortive, disruptive to our own Krystic, frequency. And I've seen, what it does to the organic template. It totally distorts it. Whereas the Schumann residency and the divine organic crystal template is attuned to the 332, correct? Right, 332.
432.
I'm sorry, 432. 432. I wrote it in the book. It's in the infinite. and it was purposely taken off that. So that's very healing and harmonious to our organic template. Well, so is the Krystala Spiral attuned to that, the 432 then?
Absolutely. However, 432 is only a base to start from. It's actually 108 is a base to start from. Now, I'm actually in the middle of doing a course all about this. I've been researching it for 15 years. The amount of information that I've got on this is so enormous that I've actually decided to create a course. So
how can we find out about your course, just so we don't forget about it? Is it
well, I'll put it on my, when I've got it ready to go, I'll put it on my Waking Earth channel. And obviously this is going to be
Waking Earth channel, YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about it on my Waking Earth channel. This is going to be like
Waking Earth on YouTube.
Waking Earth on
Eon
YouTube.
Parks.
This is going to be a paid course, basically. I'm gonna basically like pay for it, because it's 15 years of research that I've put into it. So basically, I reckon that I've figured out the frequencies and the musical system that the Tartarians were using in these cathedrals. So when the parasites took over,
can I just get back to you there? Because
go on.
I'm still wrapping my mind around it. For example, when I was in, and there's so many of them, there are these round buildings. There's one here in Palermo too, rotundas they call them, and then they have like archways all around. So you were telling me is that the organs are in there and they could tone these frequencies, and then they would reverberate like through the dome, because there's this dome, and then these archways were almost like woofers or speakers that would magnify the tones. Is that right?
The arches were basically big magnets. Now, what you'll usually find inside these big cathedrals is, if you take like a big dome and you go inside and you look up, on the underside of the dome will usually be some like arrangement of squares, or arrangements of these like little flower petal things, or like
they're kind of recessed. That are kind of recessed. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what they are ionic resonators. Now, they're designed to tune the etheric energy that's being pulled into that resonant chamber, and it's designed to tune the frequency inside that space, and then they will then combine it with very specific sound tones of frequency. And what's important to know, right, is these pipe organs, each individual note has its own individual pipe. to generate that vibration in the air. And it's so that's very important. Each note has to have its own pipe, because it's the combination of the two sound waves hitting each other in the air that create the effect, the harmonic resonant effect between those two frequencies. If you were to let's say, for instance, you were to have a piece of music which was created using the exact Tartarian frequencies, the exact Tartarian things, and you were to play it over a set of speakers, like you have a left and a right speaker, and you were to just play that, turn the volume up, play it in a room, it wouldn't work, because you're not getting the vibrations, the interaction of the vibrations from all the individual pipes, if you know what I mean. Which is why all the old instruments were all, like a guitar is all individual strings, a harp is all individual strings. It's why you see angels playing harps. Why do you think that is? Because they were using the original Krystic frequencies, and the harps were all tuned, each string specific frequencies, and through playing that you could open up connections to God source and bring in or it was literally opening up portals and stuff with these sound tone frequencies. If you go back in history 100 years, every house had a piano, and they'd all sit around playing pianos and all that. And of course, the old pianos, you could tune in each individual note to this mathematical formula, which is what they were using. So through playing the music, this Tartarian civilization was all based around music. And the music and the sound tones and the interaction of these sound tones in the air, it was healing. It was a template thing. It was all based on spirituality. They'd all gather round, play music, celebrate creation. Everything was wonderful. Everything was amazing. Go to any park in the UK, big park, you'll find a band stand, which is usually an octant, and usually it'll have like the sort of the monopteros, I call it monopteros structure, with an etheric thing. So they'd literally have a band playing music. All the people would gather around, they'd play the music, the sound frequencies would go out, heal all the people's templates. They'd be more connected to God, they'd be happy, they'd be healed, everything would be wonderful. Their entire civilization was built upon music and sound and spiritual balance and attunement and being connected to God's consciousness field. That's what it was all about. And that's what they were doing in all these churches.
And back to the Kystala Spiral, because that was all a part of the architecture. So every time they did that, it strengthened that connection of the Krystala Spiral of life to infinite source. So it was just a constant celebration of life and the Krystic ways and infinite source.
Yeah. That's why they celebrated all these. They had all these gods. Isis was the biggest one. The Statue of Liberty in New York, Manhattan Island, isn't it?
Yes.
That's Queen Isis, right? And that's a trophy, right? Which they stole. They basically it was originally from Paris. Isis, and when the parasites took over Paris and destroyed and took over that massive Tartarian population center, they took the main statue down, which was a celebration of Isis, and they took it and stuck it in New York as a trophy of their victory against the Tartarian Isis citadel.
So I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, and some very bizarre experiences I had in Malta. So for me, I really wanted to first ask about the goddess, because I came up with just being there and seeing these ancient goddess temples, and I realized for me the goddesses were in female form, but they had this balance, the hierogamic balance of divine masculine and divine feminine within, and they were guardians, of the Mother Earth. They had a special connection through their genetic, of the divine feminine, the eternal mother, which we've been talking about with Jane Evershed. And so they held the template of the planet in their hands, and they knew how to tone to maintain, these high frequencies that kept everything in alignment with infinite God source. And that's what they were doing in all these temples, and with the Krystala Spiral. And, for me, it was very powerful because I could remember that when I touched the stones. I remembered that time because it was a beautiful time, because everything was in harmony and nurtured, and there was the presence of the Divine Mother, which has been totally cut out, and there was this loving presence, nurturing that we lack in our world today. So would you say Isis was part of that kind of what I'm talking about, or can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Isis, Queen Isis, is known by many different names, but she was sort of like the goddess of creation and things like that. What the Tartarians were doing, if you look at their buildings, they have all these pictures of all these people they worship. They didn't just worship one monotheistic god like what Christianity tells you to do. Obviously there is one God source, and there always will be one God source, but they celebrated all this spectrum of different beings. And
I think also they were kind of Deva spirits that I saw a lot in the Yucatan, because what they were more energy forces or Krystic beings who were in harmony with like Saint Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc, I think, and Saint Catherine are also supposedly women that had that divine feminine, divine masculine hierogamic balance within. So that's what it emanates to me. But then they were usurped, and hijacked into the god, this whole false Anunnaki gods. I think David Icke talks a lot about it, because they were really just one family of God that kept repeating itself. And I think, and I saw it also in the Yucatan, because we're talking about Deva spirits that they didn't worship, but they like celebrated, the sun and the rain, and then they became deities, like personified, that you had to sacrifice to. So everything turned into like Baal, which like here in Mosia, we have the statue of Baal where they used to sacrifice the firstborn to. So I think that whole goddess moved away from celebrating these energetic vortexes and energies of Krystic beings into sacrificing to really it was more like Enki, Thoth, Lucifer, and Zeus, and all the different names. Does that make sense to you? Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Just to basically the angelic humans, the angelic 12-strand human race lines, the 12 tribes as they call them, they were built on something called the Choronesium template. Now, we're in the third seeding of angelic humans on this planet. There's been seeding one, seeding two. They both got wiped out. We're now in seeding three. Now, seeding three, we're actually the Choronesium 2 template, because there was a Choronesium 1, and then that got wiped out. So they created Choronesium 2 for the second seeding, and Choronesium 2 was used again for the third seeding. So this was all part of the Emerald Covenant. This is how far back it goes. It's literally, you're talking thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. This goes back. Now, when the Choronesium template was created as part of the Emerald Covenant, I can't remember the exact race line that was involved in it. It was a fallen group, and they really didn't like the fact that this Choronesium template was created. So in response to that, they created a race line called the Anunnaki.
Yes, I think it was a Syrian race line that had fallen.
Yeah. Now, the Anunnaki were created for one specific purpose, and it was to be the destroyers of the angelic human race.
Yes.
So that's important to know. But going back to what you were saying before,
I mean, I
Yes.
ask you because, for example, I was just in Palermo the other day, and I was in this Catholic church, and I took all these pictures because they had all these mythic creatures and gods and goddesses in there, and I'm like, what is this doing in a Catholic church? I mean, they had centaurs, and they had a third eye projection, and this is a Catholic church. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
All the angelic little pooties and everything. So I think that if that was part of the art, because you look at, and the Renaissance supposedly was the resurgence of, and I got to ask Jane Evershed about this because she's such she knows so much about that. She's such an expert. But I think, these Tartarian structures, they had very deep spiritual meanings to the gods and the goddesses, and they got hijacked. Again,
Yep.
it's just as Jesus got hijacked, Yeshua 12 got hijacked into Jesus, and Hail Caesar, and all that. And I think the myth and mythology, we still have a lot to learn about it, because I think there was it has our true history in it, and it refers to a lot of the God source worlds and our connections to, like Pegasus, the whole, very high plasma, Pegasus, amethyst order beings, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'm so excited about the Tartarian art, because I think there's so much hidden in there. And I do think even the Madonna, you see these Madonnas, of course, everywhere, especially in Italy, the mother and child. But I think they were referring to the divine mother, and divine Christ child, that has been taken out. So the Catholic Church took that and usurped it and made them all into, Mother Mary, Virgin, the whole, and the Jesus, the baby, because you see them all over the churches. And I think they wrote someone else's name on it, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, whoever. But these were paintings that were reflected a much greater perspective.
Yeah, they've usurped a lot. Now, if you start researching Christianity, you'll discover that basically they've usurped a lot of the pagan stuff. They've sort of changed all the meanings of the pagan stuff. Now, to the point where I actually believe that paganism was what the Tartarians were following as. Now, also as well, what language do the parasites like to use within their little circles? Latin. All these scholars, all these people who are in the universities, when they come up, when they find a new plant or a new disease, they'll give it a Latin name.
And the mass was in Latin, mass.
Yeah. So I reckon Latin. Well, they reckon that most of the European languages are actually derived from Latin. So it was like a core language. So I reckon that logically the Tartarian global language was Latin. That's what they were using, which is why the parasites, they're all now sitting in these Tartarian buildings, and they've got this Latin language, and they use it just for themselves. You can't go anywhere in the world and they're speaking Latin. It's like this language that only exists in the high societies and the universities and things like that. If you can speak Latin, obviously that tells you something about who you belong to and all that kind of stuff. It's like they keep it to themselves. So now what they've done, one of the big things they've done to usurp Isis, which was one of their main celebrations of creation and life and stuff like that. In recent times, they've created a terrorist organization called ISIS. So,
right.
Whenever anybody mentions the word ISIS on the TV, it automatically brings up all this negativity, right? Which has been done intentionally, right? Intentionally.
It's another strike at the whole divine feminine and the divine mother,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the goddess of creation. So
there's many different examples of that. Now, once you are aware of some of this Tartarian architecture, I mean, on my Waking Earth channel, I'm going to start doing this big presentation of all these pictures I've been collecting and showing you all the architecture and things like that. So once you're aware of what it looks like and what to look for, you will see it literally everywhere. Now, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because the entire globe was a free energy society. No one had to pay an energy company for, like, you're paying through the nose basically at the moment. Like, you're almost paying like a quarter of your wages to use electricity and gas. It's absolutely ridiculous. The parasites have monopolized it, and they're forcing you to pay them.
And also, I want to make another point. In fact, I was talking to David Icke about you. I mentioned you to David Icke, and
right, okay.
Because we were talking about AI and the fact that, AI, and the EMFs that we're in now, 5G, 6G, and on, and the Starlink low orbiting satellites of our dear friend Elon Muskrat are very damaging to organic life. And so, I was very outspoken protesting against, this, which was still put in during the whole scandemic. But people would say to me, well, we need technology. How can you be against technology? And what I want people to hear and realize is that we had technology that was healing to us just by we just talked about how the singing and the tones were actually helping us maintain our catharic grid, our Krystic
absolutely, yeah,
that's grid. And we could do all this, and it was free. And now they took that and they're offering us this Trojan horse of weaponized technology that we have to use to be tracked, to be controlled, and it damages our organic divine template.
Right.
Ahead,
so basically what's been done on this planet incredibly pees me off. Right. It does. And I don't want to put an end to it. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the way that you destroy this fallen angelic system that's used to keep humanity in slavitude, right? The easiest and fastest way.
Hang on just right now. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to find out how we can take this back, take back our planet. That's the theme of the Infinite Human Talk Show. So take just a minute break and we'll be right back, guys. And welcome back to the Infinite Human Talk Show. I'm with the great Eon Parks, and we've been talking about the marvelous Tartarian architecture and technology, and how we had not only free technology, but it was technology that was far advanced of what the weaponized technology they're handing us now. And it was actually healing to our organic template. And so now this last part of our two-part series, we want to start talking about the solutions of how we can take back our planet, take back our ley lines, take back our divine template, blueprint of the planet, and this marvelous technology that is our birthright. So, Ian, what say you?
Okay, that was a cliffhanger to leave the last section, by the way. Okay, so as I was saying before, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I'm tired of this system that I'm living under. I'm tired of these parasites making us and forcing us to live under this system, forcing us to go to work, forcing us to give all our energy to them. They're sitting there in all these buildings. They give us this false history. They're just vampirically feeding on all our energy. Now, the best way, and I believe the fastest way to destroy that system, right, is to give free energy back to the world. Because if you have free energy, you don't need them anymore, right? Because their entire system is built upon reliance. We need them to give us electricity. We need them to give us gas. We need them to give us oil. There's a reliance that has,
now, as I was talking to David Icke, in the ancient times, Saturn used to control the water flow to the village. Right where I am in Trapani, there's a fountain of Saturn because that was life-giving. Now with the internet, they're getting us to put all our financing on there, so they can just turn off the internet, and you can't buy food or fill up your car or whatever. So how do we? Because everyone that wants to give free energy, even like Tesla, he died poor, and all the patents are the people are killed and the patents are bought up by the wealthy. What do we do? What do we do?
Well, Elon Musk, just as a little side note, he's usurped the name of Tesla.
Yes.
If you listen to him, he doesn't call the company Tesla. He calls it Tesla.
Yes.
Right. So he's introduced a little distortion in there. So
how parasitic. Don't they always do that? Don't they always do
Tesla? And that really annoys me when I hear that, because it's not Tesla, it's Tesla.
And he's perverted everything, and it's certainly not free.
So anyway, the basic concept of how these parasites are controlling us is they're vampirically feeding on our energy, and they're using it by monopolizing the things we need to live. Electricity, gas, energy, oil, whatever, food, everything. So they position themselves in this above us, and they make us reliant on them. Now, anything that we can do so that we can break that reliance, so that we don't need them for those things, is how we escape from their system. One of the main things that we can start off with is free energy. Once we've got free energy, we don't need to pay them money for their electricity and their gas. We can get it ourselves. It's in the air, right above our houses. Right? That's what the Tartarians
how do we do it? How do we do it?
Okay, so
I want it.
It's the answer's there. Walk outside your house and go and have a look. It's right there in front of your face, but you just need to know what you're looking at. So basically what it is, it's some type of either copper, brass, or in some cases gold antenna that's sticking up. It can be a long spike. It can be a Christian cross. It can be any one of a number of, it can be any shape you want, basically, sticking up in the air as an aerial. Then that will collect the etheric energies, which are naturally in the air. The higher, the better. The higher you go up in the air, the more voltage.
And we're not talking like young Frankenstein, where you put a rod up in the and all the lightning will strike it and run into your house. Are we talking? Are you going to become like?
Back to the Future. But the film Back to the Future.
That's right.
Trilogy.
Back to the.
It was all about a light. It was all about a lightning strike hitting the clock tower, and the clock tower was a Tartarian building with the squashed pyramid and the Greek pillars and the energy coming in. And when the energy came in, it changed history. That was that's what they were trying to get at in the film, and that's why it's called Back to the Future, because you went back in time and you were in the future with all this Tartarian technology. And that clock house in the film, that exists in all three films across the whole trilogy. And it's a focal point of the way that the film is all focused around. It's all about that.
Wow.
The whole film is about going back to the future of the Tartarian society. And once you understand that, that's why it's called Back to the Future. It's a little sort of like little trick they put in there.
So back
anyway,
to the future. I just want to really just melt this into your mindset. Back to the future. What we have been tricked, we began this on April Fool's Day, is believing that we're so advanced. Now we're getting so advanced, and we're just being fed gumdrops of really dumbed down technology that's weaponized, when the past is the true future. Back to the future. That is what we need to return to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in simple terms, you have some type of aerial high up on the top of a building with some type of metal which conducts electricity. Copper, brass, gold, whatever. And then it comes down to a ball, a sphere, a hollow sphere, which is usually made of the same material. I'd say copper. And inside that is mercury. You've got mercury inside that ball. Some people say it's normal mercury. Some people say it's something called red mercury. Now, what happens is when you partially fill a hollow sphere with mercury and the etheric energy comes in, the mercury will start to spin inside that sphere, right? You don't need any kind of power. The power source is the air. You're plugging into the natural templates that exist in the sky, in the air, and you're pulling them in. Now, when that, you can see experiments on YouTube. I'm going to make it. I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel as well. I found a video, and someone has like this sort of half sphere, they filled it with mercury, they connect positive, negative electricity to it, and the mercury starts spinning around inside the sphere, right? So that's what they were doing. So once this mercury starts spinning around inside the copper sphere, it creates an energy field called a toroidal field. Now imagine a ring donut with a hole inside it, right? That's what this energy field looks like. And it's like this big rotating toroidal field. And it creates a whirlpool around this sphere. Now, this whirlpool effect starts pulling in massive amounts of etheric energy into that thing that's been created. Now, it's literally sucking all the electricity out the sky. And then that building, it comes down. Now, there's various different ways this is done, depending on the type of application. Sometimes it will usually come down sometimes it's like a building like that, usually octagon. The smaller buildings, it's usually octagon shape, because remember, this is all to do with templates and the angles and the geometry of what they're trying to plug into. Octagons is very, very, very important. So if you look at a lot of Tartarian buildings, they'll all be based on octagon geometry, not hexagon. Hexagon is fallen. Octagon technology. So as the etheric energy comes down, it gets encoded with the octagon thing, encryption, and then it goes down into the rest of the building, and the whole building is all built upon very specific angles and stuff. So they're creating this giant encryption. The building is a huge power amplifier of the Krystic template based on octagon technology. And then they can use that energy, which is highly charged with a specific encryption, for various different applications. They can power the local area. They can heal people who go in. They've got the big, the churches will have the round circle at the front with like the geometrical round shape on it.
Yeah,
that will be
Rosettas, I saw.
Yeah, that's like a speaker, and it will like emanate the sound frequencies out and heal the local area and things like that. The front of a church, by the way, will always be facing into a ley line, so that when you open the front of the church doors and you walk down the aisle will be a ley line. They will build that structure specifically because it's on a ley line. And then at the end of the aisle, there'll always be a stone altar. Which I think the altar is like a parasite thing. They've added that.
No, I don't think so, because I saw them actually, just what you're talking about, in the ancient temples. I think there's some. I mean, I think they've desecrated it.
They're using them for nefarious purposes at the moment.
Yes, like we said, they've desecrated and perverted it with sacrifices. But I think it is a portal or something where they pull down energies, because usually it's under the dome or something a lot of times, you know.
So, it's the focal point. It's where everything happens.
On the unfallen aspect. Oh, so basically though, we're going to have to really, like, again, back to what I write in the last chapter of my book, creating new earth communities. We're going to have to be creating communities on ley lines, and, you know, or taking them back if we can.
The first thing you need to be able to do that is free energy technology. So if you can,
but in order to, I mean, you can't just put it on your home, can you, and run it into your own electricity? You need a structure. You need to build a home or structure or a house structure.
Well, I'm not an electrician, so I don't know the finer details of how this would be done. But I would imagine if you were to stick one of these, how can I explain it? If you were to go to a building and shimmy up in the middle of the night and cut down one of the antennas and run off with it into the middle of the night, and then stick that on the top of your own house, I'd imagine that you would get some type of etheric current out of it.
But you'd have to get it attached to your electrical, input.
So what you will find is, oh God.
I think we're going to have, I mean, I'm just having conversations like this. I know I'm doing it. I know I talked to Sasha Stone about it. There's so many people now. We're all kind of like connected, and we're all like getting it. We're just getting these downloads. And I feel like we're just, it's just knowledge. This knowledge has been like taken, mind wiped from us. And as we wake up to it and as we start, remembering, we really just have to remember because we've done it before. We're going to come together and we're going to start, I think this is really anchoring ourselves on the Krystala spiral, because that Fibonacci, there will be people who choose to follow that down till space dust, but those of us that are waking up now, we're the vanguard, we're the leaders, we're the new Renaissance, the minds of the true new consciousness Renaissance, and we're the creators, and just talking about it and sparking ideas and other, indigos or aquafarians, other highly encrypted, souls that have come here to be part of this are awakening. And I feel like we all have a unique job, just like your passion is Tartarian. I'm sure you're going to do something amazing with that. And then, I have my unique soul mission, and everyone is this puzzle pieces of this divine puzzles. We come together, laying this whole new foundation to take our power back.
Absolutely, yeah. So I believe the first step is the free energy technology. If it can be brought into the mass collective consciousness's awareness that there is free energy technology that exists, and it's on the tops of all these buildings, and people being able to go out in the world and see it and know what they're looking at, have some kind of frame of reference. This is how the parasites trick everyone. They tell you that it's something else. They put it right in front of your nose and tell you that it's something else. If people can be aware of what these things are and that there is free energy technology, the collective sort of energy of humanity, they will demand access to that technology. These parasites, what are they doing at the moment? They're all talking about, let's be green, let's save the planet, electric cars, carbon footprints and all that. It's all absolute BS.
The jig will be up. We
Total BS, right?
Yes,
They've got the technology to completely eradicate all pollution, right? You don't need oil. You don't need power stations. You don't need any of that. They know exactly how to,
and they're the ones polluting it. They're the ones fracking and drilling for oil and chemtrailing, and
it winds me up. It really winds me up.
Yeah.
The two-facedness of these people is just beyond anything you've ever experienced in your life. How they can say these things and demand that you buy an electric car, demand that you reduce your carbon footprint. And they're going to try and stick us on a bloody. I'm sorry, I get very passionate.
That's okay. Bloody doesn't in America. Bloody doesn't really mean much. We don't.
Okay,
know.
So they're gonna try and stick us on a social credit system. They've already done it in China and link it to your carbon footprint and all that. Give you carbon footprint air miles, and you're only allowed to buy so much meat and all this every week and all this, and it's all to do with your carbon footprint. They're trying to use all this, and basically it all ties into this green agenda where they're trying to save the planet. It's hogwash, right? It's all just a tool of control. And the way if they wanted to, they could completely greenerize the entire planet, but they won't let us have it because they can't feed on us vampirically. So they want to keep us locked in this system of reliance. And it's all a tool of control. Really annoys me. That's what I want. Humanity needs to break through that system and destroy it. Bring it down.
Well, I think what you just described, of course, is the Fibonacci spiral. It's the same old, and they're going to keep playing their parasitic game. And I believe they're trying to do. Basically, in my concept, they're trying to ensnare souls as takeaway. I was saying the other night, with them, because I think they are being evacuated as the frequencies. I did something where I just knew it was. I was so attacked in Malta, and I was, really they were using. I had remote viewers seeing them doing the black magic rituals, and then they had all the AI networks to amplify it through the devices I was using. But I did go to all the temples around there, all the goddess temples, and I ran the Krystala spirals and tones, and I don't know how I got the energy to do it, but I did it. And then after that, I just collapsed, and I finally got out of there, but I felt a shift. I felt like the whole divine blueprint, from the last bit of what remained of our planet in Eartha, was superimposed on this planet. So it was like they were melding as one. And I feel like we're taking the whole planets, all of them are reconstituting and coming back into wholeness or holiness. And I think the energy is rising so much that they won't be able to sustain this for much longer. They will be evacuated, which is why they're driving people into this AI, getting them to upload their consciousness into a metaverse, and
Yeah.
because they're trying to take away the loosh, the energy, as much of the they can to feed on. But I really feel like we're making a shift, and I've been encouraging people, if they feel called, to move to certain areas, because I do think there are areas where the frequency is going to be a lot higher. When you get in these smart cities, those frequencies are so bombarded with all this AI, contraptions. But when you get out more with nature, the frequencies are much higher. And I've even noticed the chemtrails can't hold as much, because they're actually holding because of the chemtrails are holding because of that EMF waves. The 5G waves are just holding that into place. So I think we're going to see new communities forming that are on this Krystala Spiral of LIFE. And it's going to be like these two Earths are coexisting, where you can, and it was that way for me in Malta. Literally, I drive in to some of the main cities, all covered in concrete, and I would feel so ill with all the EMF waves. And then I drive to another Malta's tiny, so I just drive like a mile over to another part where it was all green, and I felt wonderful. So
that's why the parasites are currently trying to get us all into this the idea of living in these like 15-minute smart cities. They want to keep us all locked in a small area, or like 5G frequencies, social credit system. You can't leave. You've got an electric car. You're not allowed to leave. You've got all these restrictions placed on you. They want to contain you in a small area. And then they will have pockets of these 15-minute cities. So that's what they're trying to do. I don't believe they will be successful in that.
Well, I think, that's the Fibonacci spiral. And I think some people will buy into it. I just think that anyone that's listening to our voices are tuning into the Infinite Human Talk Show. They're tuning to higher frequencies. And, I can hardly ever go to big cities anymore. They're like poison to me, because I just feel them deteriorating my divine blueprint. I feel that. And when I'm out swimming, and we have natural hot springs, or bathing in the sun, and just downloading all that beautiful the plasma frequencies, I just feel so restored and experience bioregenesis. So I think everyone's just, whether they know like all the Krystic teachings or colonic science, but I think so many people are just tapping into the frequencies, and they can feel it in their bodies. And, you feel healthy, you feel good, you feel full of life, which the Kystala is life. And the other is the death cult.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as we progress, obviously we've done it all on the spiral time.
Yeah, we've got about 10 more minutes, so let's just kind of wrap up the whole.
Okay, so just a very, very quick recap. This reality that we live in is based upon a creation template. There are two opposing creation templates existing on top of each other. You've got the original Krystic template based on the Kryst code, KRYST. That's based on the 12-point Cathara grid, the Ruche code pattern. Go on my Waking Earth channel. There's a video all about it. And then you've got the Fibonacci spiral, which is based on the fallen Metatronic code. These two things, they create their own creation spirals, and the spirals are different. These create time wave spirals. These two spirals have recently just crossed each other, and reality at some point in the future is now going to diverge into two completely separate realities. We are now
one with, and just to tie it in, because
Yeah.
we had an earlier one where you talked about this, so you can go back to that. And also when David Icke, those that listen, so many people tune into that, he calls it prime creation and the simulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all saying the same thing. It's happening.
So there's now a fallen timeline and a Krystic timeline.
Yes.
You can choose which one you want to be on consciously if you want to do that. So you can do sort of techniques and things like that. If you go on my Waking Earth channel, there's a link in the description of every video to my Facebook group to do with the astrology.
What's the name of your Facebook group?
It's Nomi Earth Beginners Guide to Failsafe Ascension. It's called. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's in the description of every video on my Waking Earth channel. So just click on the link.
Okay.
Waking Earth on YouTube. Yeah. And that'll teach you how to get started with doing all these sort of frequency activations and stuff like that, and aligning yourself with the crystal spiral. So yeah, as we progress further in time, these two spirals will be progressively diverging away from each other. Now we will start to perceive that difference in very different ways, in lots of numerous ways in our hologram. This information that we're talking about in this video is part of that separation. People are finding out the reality of this Tartarian stuff, which is right in front of your face. People have been walking, me included, have been walking around my entire life looking at these things and not even knowing what they are, never even asking the question, what is this that I'm looking at? We're told it's a church. We're told it's a cathedral. We're told it's a government building. But when you actually find out where these buildings actually, what they are, it's like, oh my God, how did I never know this information before? What?
And I was so happy to hear this, because I was always so much in love with these Catholic churches, but I'm not into the Catholic religion, so I couldn't understand, why do I love a Catholic church or a Social Security building? You know, I mean,
so they pass it off. They pass it off in history. They call it things like the Renaissance, Baroque style, Roman, Greek. It's all Tartarian. It's all Tartarian buildings that have been taken over by the parasites. They've created a false history. The people who've moved in have called themselves Freemasons. Now, Freemasonry. What's masonry? It's bricks. Right? So they've moved in and got these free buildings. So Freemasonry. They've got Freemasonry, free bricks. They call themselves Freemasons. They've passed themselves off as being Master Stonemasons. Right?
Like they created it, but they
an excuse as to where these buildings came from. So they had to say, oh yeah, we made them because we're Master Stonemasons. If they're so Master Stonemasons, why don't they build any more of them now? Because they can't. They're not Master Stonemasons at all. They stole them all, right? If they were Master
Stonemasons, put their names on it, forgeries.
If they were Master Stonemasons, go and build another one. Go and build another St. Paul's Cathedral and show me how much of a Master Stonemason you actually are. They can't do it because they never built them in the first place.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So we're in for, I think, yes. And those of us on the Kystala Spiral, I think, are really in for a ride. It's going to get really exciting. I know a lot of us have been grieving and letting go, doing a lot of shadow work and letting go of stuff and trauma and all that. And that's fine. But as you do that, you start to remember. I think there really are no past lives because there's no time. So there are alternate identities that we begin to, as we heal the trauma, we begin to remember them. And we'll be remembering that many of us were the ones that built this. And also many of us will find ourselves in a whole nother reality. We'll just be, wow. And we'll also be distanced a lot from more and more from 3D Earth. You know, I think from many of us have lost, and it's grieving, but we've lost friends and families either to death or just they don't see us anymore. It's like we're in different flash sequences. Really, since there's no time, you can call them timelines, but they're actually flash sequences. And it's just like, someone you may have many. And David, I spoke about how the fact that our eyes can see very, very limited range of of light, and there's many other entities around us. Well, there's also, we'll be more with entities of higher frequencies and hanging out with the big guys, I call it, whereas the people who are choosing the downward spiral, won't even be part of our reality that much anymore. And it's going to get exciting, though. I think all this work that we've done is about to pay off. So hang in there.
So by learning all this information and becoming aware of the reality of what this is, back to a time when we were all in tune with God source consciousness field, all these wonderful frequencies, healing. We are literally, what we're trying to achieve is, as I said before, we're going back to the future. That's the analogy of the film.
Back to the future.
We need to go back to the future and relearn all the things that these parasites are withholding from us. And once we know,
that's the message I want to end the series on, because we're running out of time now. Back to the future. And okay, thank you so much, Ian Parks.
It's my absolute pleasure. It really, really is.
Okay, and Waking Earth on YouTube. YouTube is the best way. And Facebook, he's on Ian Parks.
Well, Ian Parks, P-A-R-K-S.
Okay, and we need to get a website.
I do need to get a website.
And I see you doing, and something I know I'm going to be doing is with the Infinite Human Tours. We really need to be traveling around and looking at these structures with new eyes, and going in them, working the ley lines, toning them. I think we're going to start some, I see myself something like that with you. So I'm sure I'll visit you in England before long. It's coming up. I can feel it.
I would really look forward to that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll sign off now. Ciao for everyone, and I'll see you next week with another episode of the Infinite Human Talk Show. Thank you for tuning in.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.